I sometimes wonder how fighters from different organizations would do in the UFC because the main narrative that's pushed is that the UFC is the highest level of MMA, which it is, but there are a few outliers that wouldn't only do good in the UFC. I personally think they would dominate, and Shamil Musaev is a perfect example of that. Before I go on with the video, I ask that you guys like and subscribe right now, and then if you don't like the video, you can unlike and unsubscribe at the end of the video. I discovered Shamil from a YouTube channel called Volt Sport that makes documentaries about fighters. When I looked at the thumbnail, I wasn't really blown away because I know they have a history of overhyping fighters, like the time when they made a thumbnail about Anatoly Manikyan suggesting that he could beat John Jones and Francis Ngannou. But then I watched the video and I saw just how talented he is. He's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the world, in my opinion, and I think he would do really good in the UFC. He has wins over some pretty good fighters like Logan Storley and Murad Ramazanov. Let's talk about Logan Storley. For those of you who don't know, Logan Storley is a very good wrestler in Bellator, and he has wins over really good fighters, some that you might even know, like Michael Venom Page. I watched that fight and personally scored it for MVP because unlike Logan, MVP actually did damage whenever things were on the feet. When Logan would take down MVP, all he would do is control him. He wouldn't threaten any submissions, let alone land ground and pound. I don't know what criteria they used to judge this fight, but one thing I know is that it favors crotch sniffing. Don't get me wrong though, I was still impressed by the fact that Logan Storley, standing at 5'9", was able to have somewhat good distance management against MVP, who's 6'3" and comes from a point karate background. For those of you who don't know, point karate fighters are very good at distance management because the range at which they fight is a lot wider than that of boxers, for instance. If Logan Storley tried to get in the pocket at the wrong time, all it would take is for MVP to dart in and throw the right hand, which we've seen him throw multiple times. Logan wasn't able to have that same success against Shamil, and boy oh boy, how one-sided that ass beating was. Shamil was doing every single thing perfectly. He was moving laterally, which is very important against wrestlers because it makes it harder for them to time their takedowns. And when Logan did attempt a takedown, that was 1 minute into the first round. He couldn't get it and just decided to clinch with Shamil. He got gassed out from that and Shamil broke free and put on a striking masterclass after, landing a variety of strikes including jabs, teeps, and a really powerful spinning back kick. He then lands two barrages of punches that knocks Logan down on his knee just for him to get saved by the bell, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because it was all just to take more damage in the second round. 15 seconds into that round, Shamil lands a right hand left hook combination that drops Logan and then he finishes him off with ground and pound. At the end of that sequence, Logan was literally out cold. What a brutal finish. And just when I thought he couldn't get more impressive, he went on to face Murad Ramazanov in that very same tournament. Going into the fight, I honestly didn't know who this guy was because this was the first time I was seeing both these two fighters. But when I watched him fight in one championship, I noticed how this guy fights a lot like Khabib. Guys like Kobe and Merab are chain wrestlers, whereas Khabib is not a chain wrestler because when he takes you down, you stay down and he'll have his way with you. He understands positioning very well. And I think if there's one fighter that reminds me a lot of Khabib, it's Murad Ramazanov. That's why he was the favorite going into the fight. And if I had known these guys before watching that fight, I probably would have picked Murad to win. But Murad wasn't able to have that much success against Shamil because he failed his first takedown attempt. And then in his second one, Shamil got up immediately and then proceeded to land a right hand left hook combination that dropped Murad and finishes off the fight with two grounded strikes. And in case anyone had any doubts and thought that knockout was a fluke, he went on to beat Murad again via unanimous decision. I'm not going to glaze Shamil because he hasn't faced the best of the best, but if there's one really good fighter that he's faced, who I think would be a top 15 fighter in the UFC, it's Murad. So Shamil would at least break the top 10. There's some guys in the top 15 that I think he would easily beat. If not easily, he would at least still beat them. And that's Michael Page, Jeff Neal, Stephen Thompson, Vicente Luque. And one thing about Shamil, the only way you can beat him is through being a good striker. He doesn't seem to be fazed by guys who are good grapplers like Murad. And I think Bilal fights a lot like Murad, so he wouldn't be able to keep Shamil down. And things would stay on the feet, and you all know how it goes there. This may sound crazy to some of y'all, the fact that I'm picking Shamil over Bilal. But when you watch Shamil fight, he is freaking good, man. Murad took him down and he got up immediately. This is someone who backpacks guys, keeps them down, and smashes them. Watch his one championship fights. Murad is freaking good, bro. Freaking good. He's from Dagestan. He probably trains with Islam. I've seen pictures of him and Islam together. So he probably trains at the highest level. And Shamil made him look like easy work. So I genuinely think he would knock out Bilal in the first or second round. Mark my freaking words. Once he gets out of his PFL contract, I'm sure he'll be interested in joining the UFC. And when he does do that, this man is going to dominate. This is the new generation. Just because he's from PFL doesn't mean he's not UFC level. We know a lot of guys who are UFC level for a long time, but they only joined it now. Michael Page is a great example of that. He just came off a good win against Shera Bullet Magomedov at the age of 30 freaking 8, 37 or 8. So I think Shamil's even better than MVP. So I think my words hold a lot of weight. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.